Hey everybody, so I just finished reading this book, The Brain in the Inner World. And it was a pretty it was a pretty good read. Honestly, it was the first book in a while that I actually read nearly word to word because usually with my speed reading, I learned that, I don't have to read every word, but with this one, they just they just give a lot of information and a lot of useful information and a lot of good theories and just a lot. Just to put it briefly. So, and I don't know if I want to answer the question. Yeah, we can answer the questions, the main four questions. So, number one, what is the book about? This book is about, well, they pretty much, that's what I found out. Books, they usually, pretty much talk about what it's about in the title and the heading. So, obviously, an introduction to the neuroscience of subjective experience. And subjective experience, if you don't know what that is, that's our personal experience, which is, like, for instance, there's a Soplistic philosophy, which says that, like, only I exist and no one else exists. But, well, I can't say the philosophy is false, but people believe that because they can only feel themselves. So, like, I can only feel my emotions and I can only feel my things. So that's kind of what this book is stating, that we can only feel ourselves, but it talks about how we can infer just based on how other people act that they're also conscious in a sense. So let's talk about what the brain does in a sense with its what it does with itself. So the brain, first of all, what it does, it connects the internal world to the outer world, and the internal world is the bodily processes that happen throughout, yeah, again, throughout your body. So that would be like digestion, or if you have a headache for some reason, and things of that such. And obviously the outer world is your like with your visual cortex and your auditory cortex, and I think touch goes with that too. So the somatosensory cortex. So obviously, well, not obviously, because you may not have read these same books that I have, but, well, I already knew that consciousness basically is just the ability to sensate and the ability to perceive, well, sensate your own feelings and perceive the outside feelings, which basically that's what they say in here, but they just say that in, yeah, just kind of in different terms. So it's good to know that two authors, Mark Solms and I forgot the other author's name, but I know his name. He had Humphrey in his name. It's good to know that two people on the same kind of pathway, because both of them are neuroscientists. It's good to know that people think the same. Wait, I don't think that's. It's good to know that two authors, they have the same opinion. So, if two, like, for instance, if three people who are who have PhDs, well, I can't say PhDs, but if three people are informed about a certain area, then you can probably believe them. So, I'm just missing one person. Just missing the one person to truly believe that what I'm talking about is true. So now number two, what is being said in detail, or what is being said in general. So the basically the chapters that they talk about are the mind and the brain, which is, yeah, we can just go into it with like that, like we go into each chapter and kind of like talk about what they say. So the mind and the brain, how do they relate? Well, they relate because they feed off of one each other, but I should say the mind is more of your internal, and the brain also deals with the external. So the mind is, like I said, your ability to sensate, which is, if you don't know the tenses, it's just sensation. So your mind is your mind basically sensates and your brain activates on those sensations, which pretty much that sums it up pretty much beautifully. So next, consciousness and unconsciousness. Now, again, it just goes with sensation and perception. So if you're conscious, you're more likely, well, basically the rules of consciousness are you have to be able to sense it and you have to be able to perceive. And I'm not sure if you have to perceive. Well, obviously, because there's different levels of consciousness, but I think just being able to sense it and act on those sensations is enough to call you sentient. So there we go. And the unconscious. We are, we and other people are unconscious. Basically, when I'm pretty sure it's with the brainstem. If you know the brainstem, that's basically what connects. It's connected to the hypothalamus. Well, it's called the HPA, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal, which basically that it's in the back of our neck. You know, I'm grabbing to it, but you can't see it. So it's in the back of our neck and with the brainstem, or not in the back of our neck, but in the bottom of our brain, close to the occipital lobe. And basically, what that does is it sends the hormones from our brain to our body. And when the brainstem is cut off, or not cut off, but when it's injured, like with people who have brain injuries or people with car accidents and who are in a coma, they are basically in that comatic state because of the lesion to the brainstem. So there, that's unconscious. And also something else that I would like to mention is that when we're sleeping, because I've also read books on sleep in the past, and when we're sleeping, we are, when by we I mean us humans. If if you dream, but when we in, I'll get to that in a second, but or right now I should say. So when we dream, we are by definition conscious because we are able to sensate and feel things. So like if we're having a nightmare, we can feel scared, even if we can't like control, like we don't have full perception, or not full perception, but we don't have full ability to control our emotions, but we still have the ability to sensate our emotions. So therefore we are still conscious. But the only time we're unconscious is when, again, the brainstem is cut off, or not cut off, sorry, I'm thinking that because of a study they showed. But when the brainstem is injured in a sense, that's when we're unconscious, and also when we sleep in the first place and we're not dreaming. Those are pretty much the only times. So next is emotion and motivation, and there are four main types of emotion that they stated, which are the four basic types, which is seeking, fear, anxiety. I'm pretty sure, and honestly, I forgot the fourth one, but I know that I'm pretty sure I have it though. But I'm pretty sure that well, not I'm pretty sure the seeking system, that's the reward system. So the dopaminergic, or it's correlated with the dopaminergic cells, and the second one, which is fear, that's obviously with fear, but the process that happens in is the medial amygdala, or not. No, sorry, not fear. Oh, I know all of them now. So yes, we're talking about fear, and that happens in the again in the amygdala. And the next one is rage. This is the one that I forgot to say. Rage. This is the one that happens in the medial amygdala, and that's something that I wanted to know about because, well, I just want to know, where does rage happen, and because I haven't felt rage in a while, and I was wondering what that has to do, or what does that have to do with my brain in a sense. And then the last one, or did I say all four? So seeking, which is reward, the rage, anxiety, and man, I really forgot that. It's fine. We can go on to the next one, which is memory and fantasy. So with the memory, obviously, it has to do with our limbic system, which is, has to do with the hippocampus and other regions. Well, obviously, it has to do with regions of the brain, but with the hippocampus, and there's different types of memory. The ones that we basically remember are episodic memories. Episodic memories types. It's just a type, which are basically like they call it autobiographical parts of memories, which is like memories we remember because something happened in them or we felt a certain way. That's why when we learn something, we learn better when we have emotion with it. So, or why we remember things with emotion. So, for instance, if you were, I think about right now, I'm thinking about a time that I burned my hand. I remember that specifically because my hand was burnt. So maybe you could think of something like if you've broken an arm, or let me think. Yes, if you broken your arm, broke your ankle, or if you just got hurt. Pretty vague, but if you just got hurt. And dreams next, chapter 6, dreams and hallucinations. Now this part I kind of I kind of already knew kind of some of the stuff here, but they just talked about how the brainstem, like what we talked about the HPA, that is also connected or correlated, I should say, with our dreams, and that in the nuclei inside of that determine whether we're going to be in non-REM sleep or in REM sleep. And in REM sleep, that's where the majority of our dreams happen, but dreams can also happen in REM sleep, or excuse me, non-REM sleep, if but only in the beginning of the night, I should say. So when you mentioned that, I thought of an example that basically when I woke up, or not, I can't say I woke up, but one day when I was dreaming, and I was dreaming that I fell down, and this is before I like right before I went to sleep, because this is pretty much when it happens when you enter into light sleep in the N1 phase. And basically when that happened, I remember that like I moved my legs, and I pretty much woke up because I had a dream that I fell off a cliff or fell off a skyscraper, and that was just an example of non-REM sleep. So maybe you could think of an example where you had non-REM sleep. So next is genetic in chapter 7, and this genetic one, it was pretty much funny because an example pretty much exactly happened with the right after I read the portion of the book, which is that women and men aren't, they're basically their only difference, there is a only one chromosome difference between a woman and a man, which is pretty much the last chromosome, and that decides whether we're gonna be a woman or man, or whether we're gonna be born. You know what gender we're gonna be. And okay, so next thing with genetics was that that woman, because of their way their corpus callosum is structured, it's pretty much weird stuff like this, just off of, again, just genetics, like just weird stuff like this. So because of off of that they are more likely to be worried than to feel any other emotion. And likewise with men, because of the way their corpus callosum is structured, and their left hemisphere and right hemisphere come together, they're more likely to feel rage. So basically, their amygdala is more activated than the woman's, and the woman's, well, basically their amygdala is activated too, because fear and anxiety kind of, they pretty much correlate with the same brain modality. So, oh, environmental influences on mental development. This this was actually pretty, I can't say new, because I've already done a scholarship talking about the environmental influences on mental development. So, or but I should say, it's still noteworthy to talk about. So basically, the way that we act in our environment will correlate with how, or with what we do later on in life. So for instance, if while we're kids, some of the habits that we introduce then will likely stay until our older days. So for instance, for me, and I don't know if it's true because, or but I should say, like I've always had a habit of exercising that I found out. Like I've always just been an active person, and that's pretty much stayed with me throughout my whole life. So, so maybe you have a habit like, well, I'm pretty sure everyone listens to music, well, except me. So maybe not, but pretty much habits stick, and also the way you act is the way that other people will treat you, or not other people will treat you, but so like say if you're a mean person, then other people are likely to treat you mean, which will degrade your human experience and just lead you to a less happier life. But so try and act nice, basically. That's what I'm going with there. So next, well, chapter 8, 9, and 10, they were pretty much, honestly, I said that I kind of read through this whole book, but those are pretty much chapters that I can't say I skipped because I didn't skip them, but chapters that I didn't read all the way through. because they pretty much didn't really pertain with me. But Words and Things, the Left and Right Hemisphere, the Self and Neurobiology of the Talking Cure, which is chapter 9, and chapter 10, which is the Future and Neuropsychoanalysis. So next is chapter 3, which we can talk about, is the book true or not? And honestly, I think it's true in whole. They provided some really good theories on just different things. Like for instance, the dualism and monolism theory, which is either we're all made of one thing or we're made of two separate things, which is the mind and body. Well, that pretty much just goes with the same thing. Well, two different things. So the monolism, let me re-explain it. The monolism is the mind, body, and brain are the same thing, or just mind and body if you want to keep it like that. Everything is the same. And the dualism says that the mind and body are different things, which I believe that, with the monism, because it's pretty much just like, I feel like I'm pretty much one thing. So I mean, you could decide on that too. Do you think that we're monolithic or dualistic? So next is 4. What is the meaning of this book? Well, the meaning I derive from this book is that, pretty much everything happens in our brain, and I don't have to take things so seriously. I found that out because, well, I mean, I pretty much don't take things seriously, but already I pretty much but I can relax. Like the channel of my name, or the name of my channel, I said that backwards, but it's called Mind Repose, and I wanted to name it Reposity of the Mind because if you don't know what repose means, it means relaxation. So basically, what that means, I'm relaxed. I live a relaxful lifestyle, basically. A relaxful mindset. That should be more like it. And this book pretty much just enhanced my belief on that. Like, just chill out, you know. So this book, it was definitely a good read, and I'll make sure to check out more of Mark Salm's book, because this book was made in 2002, so it was kind of an old book with neuroscience, because I know new studies are coming out like pretty much weekly at this point. So I'll check out one of his other books, and we'll leave it at that. The Brain in the Inner World.